Aaron, good to have you back on here, sir.
It's a pleasure to make my return to the podcast. Where are you calling from?
Orange County. So
Okay, all right.
right down the road from you. And you know what? I think we're gonna end it here. I'm just gonna come over and we'll do it in person.
Yeah, let's cut
And
it.
yeah.
Let's go to commercial.
Yeah. What I think we gotta I wanna say BetterHelp is
Stamp.com, maybe? Little
yes, stamps.
athletic greens.
I love AG1 and I know you do too, Aaron. And with the promo code,
Yeah.
it is great to see you. I saw on your Instagram recently that you posted that some of the recent flights that you've been having, they've been playing some of your songs on them.
Yeah. It's somehow Long Way Home wound up on the from Durand Jones and the Indications wound up on the boarding playlist, I guess. So or the deplaning playlist as well. So, you know, it's kind of the perfect soundtrack for when you feel like you're gonna miss your transfer, and it's just like then we're there for you, soundtracking the experience.
Right. And I don't know who's curating those playlists. And everybody talks about playlists is so important these days. But the one that you really want to be on is I don't know what your favorite airline is. We'll just use Delta for instance. If you're
Yeah,
on the Delta boarding or deboarding playlist, that's when you know you've made it. That's a mark in
that's
the
the big
music
one. That's the
industry.
big one. Yeah, that's
Big
the big.
one. What is it like to hear a song that you've worked on while traveling? Is that kind of a weird feeling?
It's cool. It is. I mean, it's weird that it's not super uncommon for me now. It actually happens like a decent amount, which is like super, super cool, but it doesn't really get old. I mean, it feels really cool. It's like I don't know, you kind of feel like Clark Kent a little bit walking around in a glasses disguise because hear this thing happening and no one knows it's you. So it's kind of like a special moment.
Yeah, would it be different if somebody was like, "Hey, is that's that's your song, right? You you worked on that song?"
That would also be cool. That would also be cool. Yeah.
Is that one of the weirdest places you've heard some music of yours?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because I'm not in very many weird places, and I feel like a lot of times my music winds up in these um playlists for commercial establishments and whatever. But I mean, people tell me all the time, like pretty decent amount, that I'm part of their sex playlist. Um, so I guess that's but I've never you know what I'm saying? I've never experienced that on my own terms. But people tell me, that it's in their intimate spaces and intimate experiences. And I think that's great. I mean, that's kind of the highest honor I feel like music can achieve is like being at your most intimate moments, whether it's like sex or a proposal or like a baby, a newborn baby, something like that. And actually my music I think has been a part of all those. So I feel very lucky.
That you are a part of everybody's life cycle. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
I
not to get too
maybe
graphic with you though, if you were having sex and there's music playing and one of your
yeah,
songs came on, I mean, would you skip it?
gotta skip it.
Gotta
Gotta skip
skip it. That's
it.
that,
And
that
and
that's what I thought.
actually these days I think it's best for people who make music to um maybe pre-screen even you put it on a radio station, maybe pre-screen it because you got friends out there making music. I don't necessarily want to kind of have that on the playlist or let alone my own music. So pre-screen the playlist, I think
Yeah.
is
You take a cursory glance at it.
yeah.
Very smart, very smart. These are the tips that you only get on this podcast. I
This is
mean,
deep.
yeah, that'd be quite odd to hear your and you know what? Shout out to everybody who's making music, all the friends and everything. But you know, there's times to listen to stuff and there's times to not.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure. I'm not going to go down this route. I think. Yeah. Yes. Agreed.
Yes, right. We'll talk in the join us on Patreon and
The bonus segment.
we'll be diving more deep into that. Yeah, yeah. Um, are situations like that, whether it be in like well, uh, a flight or in a restaurant or a bar or something like that, is it the only time that you kind of hear your songs after they've been released into the world?
No, I mean, I was in a cab in here in LA. I guess it's an Uber, and pulled up alongside like a 50s, Bel Air, like this old lowrider car, and my music was pouring out the window. And normally I wouldn't say anything, but because I felt like that was somebody who, my music has such a home in car culture. I feel like this person has probably been to one of my shows. I did lower the window, like in the back of the Uber, and like wave and be like, "Hey, what's up?" So that was fun.
What did the person in the car that say or
He
do?
didn't. He took him a second to realize what was happening. Then it was right as the light turned green, so he gave a big smile and then pulled away. So it
Oh,
was fun.
that's awesome.
I'm a very private person. I say as we just conclude a conversation about sex playlists, but like um, it is weird in this era of social media where musicians are expected to share like artists, everybody, but especially people who kind of do any like public facing work. You're just expected to share so much of like your private life, and if you don't, I think it can be perceived as like inauthenticity.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. I mean, you know, you look back at like the 70s, for instance, right? I mean, you see Burt Reynolds on the Tonight Show, and that's about it. That's about it for in terms of getting into Burt Reynolds' personal life. He never had an Instagram or anything like that.
No, and I mean, imagine like some of these public figures that you love, if you knew kind of some of their like personal opinions or thoughts, how much that might change the relationship to their work or whatever. I mean, I guess I don't really know how it started, but I mean, back then it's also like, I guess if you had a reputation for something, then it must have been it must have been happening on such a high degree. Like James Brown was known as like a bastard, right? But that was back when people really didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. So how big of a bastard do you have to be in the 70s for everyone to know that you were such a pain in the ass?
Right. That is a good point. I never did think about the opposite of that, Aaron. You raise a good point, sir. I can't refute that.
Yeah.
Uh, but going back to this kind of being a private person, um, with you being a private person and being a songwriter, I mean that's kind of like an interesting duality as well. Just right there, it's like I'm showing you a really personal thing to me. Let me perform it in front of others and see how people like it. I mean that's such a extroverted thing to do for a private person in general. So even to ramp that up on social media being, oh, here I am doing this, here I am doing that, that just adds to another layer to this.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right. Like songwriting is a very like intimate thing. It's a vulnerable thing, and then to share the songs you write is an extra layer of vulnerability. And then to go out and perform them live and have to sort of live whatever is in the songs, it is vulnerable. I guess for me, I've just been, music has been, even since I was a kid, like my kind of easiest way to express myself, to process feelings, to share feelings. So I guess maybe that's why it feels more comfortable. And this other mode of sharing, like social media, is much newer in my life, even though it's, I've been on the internet for a while now. It's still newer for me than making music.
Right. Speaking of making music, the new album Into the Blue is out now. And what was working on that album like?
Heavy for a lot of it. I mean, that was an album that came out of, major life transitions, happening at once. They say like the biggest life stressors for people are like end of a relationship, um, like moving, loss of a job. And I think like I'm sure that's like death of somebody close to you or something. But thankfully I didn't experience any of the death part. But my I had a 5-year relationship that ended. I we were planning to move to Los Angeles together, and I wound up moving by myself. So I landed in this new city alone without my kind of chosen family and friends in New York. My band was taking a year break after an insane year of touring just to like rest. And so there were a lot of these transitions and a very kind of lonely time. So yeah, the album was definitely like is the sound of me processing all of those things that were happening in my life.
Yeah. Man, that's a lot to combine together into one time frame there.
Yeah, it's like a Voltron of shit.
It's a good word. Both
Yeah,
Voltron and shit. I like both of those. Yeah.
useful.
Yes. Very. Um, when did you start working on the album? Was it pretty soon after getting to the West Coast?
So I mean, actually, the album was started at the end of or the beginning of 2022. I had come out to LA with my partner at the time to see if we could live here, and I wound up linking up with Alex Goose while I was out here. And by the time the 2 months were up and we headed back to New York, we had a demo folder of like 50, like 50 ideas that we had started. No lyrics though, all just like instrumentals, some melody, kind of mumble melody passes. Um, so that was like the foundation of it. And then March 1st, 23, I moved here to LA officially. And that week I picked it back up with Goose. And that's when we really start to like make the ideas into songs.
Wow. All right. So you kind of sitting on them for a minute and then attacking them later on.
Yeah, I mean, well, after I left LA in February, the 8 of the next 10 months of the year were spent on the road with the indications. So I didn't have really any time to revisit while I was on tour because it was like the craziest year of touring in my life. And I've done a lot of crazy years of touring.
Do you think that the initial catalyst of it and then to the execution of it several months later kind of added to how it came out in the final product?
Probably. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, definitely because my life really changed in that interim. Um, and I was trying to avoid writing sad songs when I first started back in March, just because I felt like my audience likes the love songs and the intimate songs and romantic songs. But I was finding it hard to write any songs at all, I think, because I was trying to avoid writing sad songs. So once I allowed myself to write sad, which I could have only done, after that year of touring, I think it sort of opened up this record to kind of come from a very like real, vulnerable place. Yeah, it's a sad record. Although it's funny, I don't think people because a bunch of the sad songs are songs that you can dance to. I think it doesn't feel heavy. Like it's an emotional journey, but it's not like like I can't watch movies that are just like tear jerkers. like I tried to watch The Pursuit of Happiness like multiple times like over the years, and I'm just like, I can't watch this, man. It's just I feel like I need some sort of emotional balance. And so I think the album is has an emotional balance. It's like, yeah, it's definitely, there are very heavy moments, but it's balanced.
So it's not like Pursuit of Happiness.
This is not The Pursuit of Happiness.
Okay, gotcha. That was something that I've seen coming across a lot of the boards. Is it like Pursuit of Happiness? And I was like, oh, I
Metacritic,
gotta.
yeah, you log on Metacritic, it says another Pursuit of Happiness. It's just
Yep, the Pursuit of Happiness 2 album version. Yeah.
Pursuit of Happiness to colon, I don't know, Electric Boogaloo, maybe.
Yeah, I that was floated around for a bit.
Straight to DVD.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a deal. It's a bargain.
Yeah.
4.99. Come on. Yeah. Um, so you you make it back out to California and you start progressively working on these songs. Was that the first time kind of hashing stuff out on the West Coast?
Like doing songwriting on the West Coast?
Yeah, yeah, and hashing out the songs and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I really I hadn't touched the demos while I was on tour, and then the tour finished January, I mean, with a New Year's show. So like January 1st, 24 or 23. But I had injured my voice leading up to the end of the year. And so I had to do the first 2 months of 2023 in silence, which is really crazy. It's a crazy thing to do.
Of that was 23 or 24?
23.
23. Wow.
So, yeah, things were already stressful after a year of touring in my personal life. And then when you sort of take away your ability to even speak, to process, feelings or whatever, it's tough. And so, while I was supposed to be also packing up my life in Brooklyn, and so yeah, I didn't really have any opportunity to revisit the demos until I got back out west.
And then as soon as you landed, the voice cleared up and you were good to go, right? It was that West Coast sunshine.
Yeah, that clean LA air just healed the vocal cords.
Remarkably known for clean air, Los Angeles
Mhm.
County. Sure. Um, so I mean, you were already toying around with the idea of making the sophomore album in 2022. We're talking.
Yeah, and I wanted to, I mean, I had a bunch of different directions. At first I was sort of like, okay, well, I'm not working with one producer like I did on Introducing with Dan Auerbach. I was like, all right, I'm not doing this with Easy Eye Sound. So maybe this is an opportunity to work with lots of different producers. So I hit up a bunch of different people and started all these different little ideas. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe instead of a sophomore album, I'll do four song EPs with different producers. Um, because there are just so many different styles that I love and flavors that I enjoy. And I love collaborating. So I thought about that, but at a certain point, I just had so many ideas with Goose that I was really excited about. And I thought about, after Illmatic, like Nas's record, I think changed the approach, I think, for a lot of artists, because that was like a lot of different producers coming together, and it wasn't just like one group, one producer, rapper, DJ, whatever. It was just like all the best producers. And that's very alluring to me. But I came back to the idea of like of Gangstar, where it's like it's Guru and it's DJ Premier, and it's like has this cohesive sound because it is this one thing. And especially with Goose being a hip hop producer, um, and hip hop being a genre that can move, kind of borrow from different genres very easily, I felt confident that like this was the way to go. Let's just have one producer, and that was Goose. And yeah, just to navigate it as a duo.
Yeah, and shout out to Goose. It's Alex Goose, right? Alex is his first name. Yeah,
Mm.
fantastic job on that album. Really,
Thank you.
really good
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you. I'm so happy with how it came out.
Yeah, I'm glad that that is your reaction to it because if it was another reaction, that would be a that would suck.
I mean, it probably happens all the time, honestly. Like,
Yeah,
I think a lot of artists don't have as much agency, or they think they don't have as much agency. But like artists who are signed to different record labels who will shelve a release because they don't like it. But my record label, Dead Oceans, like has never once told me what to do creatively. Yeah, I get to make the thing that I love. So and especially on this record, I feel like I was able to like, it is the sound of my record collection. Really, I really think you can listen to this record and kind of understand who I am musically, like top to bottom. Which is cool.
yeah, it's really rad, and you definitely hear some different arrangements that you didn't hear on introducing, or at least that's how I figured it. It was a little bit of an expansion, if you
Yeah.
will, with the second album. Did you feel more free to kind of take some extra steps in this sophomore release because you already kind of set some groundwork with the introducing?
Yeah, I think introducing like Dan's approach at Easy Eye Sound is very much this like holistic. The philosophy is like to try to get the artist to access their intuitive side. So it's like a lot of first take magic. And that extends even to the session players. It's like, and I've been a session player on a different Easy Eye Sound record. And you don't learn the songs beforehand. You go into the studio, you listen to the demo for the first time, you listen to it one more time with the chords in front of you, and then you're expected to knock it out within 1 to 3 takes. And like part of that is because you're using union musicians and it's expensive, but more than that, it's like, you know, first instinct is often best instinct. And so that's the sound of the Easy Eye. That's the sound of introducing for me. It's holistic. It's a classic full band approach. Everybody's in the same room. This is much more of a hip hop. It's a production record, I would say. So a lot of the time that was spent working on this record was not the actual recording of the instruments. It was how to how to combine different takes together, how to make the drums sound exactly how we want to. And so I think I'm glad it feels like an expansion. I think it's like they're two great philosophies, and it's just nice to explore both.
That's a good answer, Aaron. Shout out to
You know,
Goose. Shout out to Arbach. And I have a whole list. And again, we're gonna be doing that on the Patreon of who I want to thank. And just join us there. And there might be some people that I don't want to thank over
that's
there.
the higher level of Patreon subscription is our thanks for nothing list.
The TFN list is growing, but that is top tier. Yeah. But I mean it's worth it.
I actually love the idea of like acknowledgments on a record, like printed, being like a thank you section and a thanks for nothing. I love that.
With this release, so there's two back-to-back singles released, right? It was uh Back into the Blue and
Yeah.
Payback, right?
Yeah.
I love that you dropped them at the same time. That was incredible.
Thank you. I that was a very intentional decision. I think, the thing that's sort of great but also tricky about this new record is that it's hard to pick one song that kind of encapsulates the whole record because there's so many different flavors on it. And so I've been trying to, I've been wanting to signal to people throughout the whole record rollout that you have to listen to the whole record in order to understand what the record is. Um, and so, especially with Payback, which is actually, I think, one of the most different songs on the whole record, I did want to give people a sense of like, I'm not making a like garage rock, Northern Soul record. There's this moment on the record, but there is something else here. And so a double drop felt like the best way to do that.
Yeah. I love that it kind of went in different directions with both of these. I really like that. Um, and I think looking at the album as a whole, I think that really showed like the kind of the two sides that were being played on the same album. I mean, because I again, you were really touching a lot of different sounds with this second one here.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like there are moments of partying and moments of introspection. Um, so I think I want the album to feel like a drive across the country. Um, and if you've ever taken a really long drive, there are those moments of like you're locked in and the music is blasting and you're just kind of like in your own little like party zone in the car, and then you have moments where it's just kind of like you get to thinking on a long drive. You think about lots of things. You think about your relationships. You think about regrets. You think about the when it was good before it went bad. You think about all these different things. You think about life, and so yeah, I want this album to feel like that. It's this emotional journey with flashbacks and moments of euphoria and excitement and despair and all those things.
Yeah, the feeling of past and present with this album was really rad. I really enjoyed that. It kind of reminded me of Bob Dylan in the way that he writes. With some of the songs on like whatever Blood on the Tracks, for instance. Like you don't really know like what perspective and what time he's talking about until it's like he finishes a verse and you go, oh, okay, like that was referring back to when he was
Mm.
with this woman or whatever. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that, man.
Well, I appreciate that very much because Blood on the Tracks is a classic for sure. It's definitely one of the greats. So, yeah,
Oh
appreciate
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, real quick, is it the best Dylan album?
no, not for me.
Okay.
Well, I'll say it's not my favorite. Freewheeling
Hmm.
um, is probably my favorite. I do really love that first one. That has his version of House of the Rising Sun, much to the chagrin of fellow Manhattan folky Dave Van Ronk. Um, I mean, but that one is cool. I love hearing his folk side, and I love, I wound up finding on that first Bob Dylan record, he has "Baby Let Me Follow You Down," and he at the beginning he says, "I learned this." He says something like, "I learned this in the green pastures of like Oxford, Connecticut, or something from Rick Von Schmidt." And just on a whim, I just Googled like who is Rick Von Schmidt, or Rick Von Schmidt, like folk singer. And that led me to Eric Von Schmidt, who has a really beautiful record. I think it's called like Second Row, First Right or something. Um, and that's another like great, weird kind of psyche folk record. So anyway, I love that Bob Dylan kind of always sends me on an adventure. I think what I admire about Bob Dylan is that he evolves over the course of his career. He's kind of ever changing, ever exploring, and I really do try to do that. If you kind of look at my records, they're not the same record. I don't make the same record twice. And it's like it's not always like so whiplashy um as Bob Dylan. But yeah, it is cool that he's like he loves lots of different kinds of music, and um he's gonna make what feels authentic to him. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Uh, yes. Speaking on this, kind of exploring um, different sounds and whatnot on this. I mean, you worked with a lot of different people throughout the production of this, right? With people from Jungle as well, right? Which is they make some great music. They recently came across my desk.
Yeah, I mean, Jungle are amazing. Yeah, Joshua Lloyd and Lydia Kitto from Jungle. They're good pals of mine. Really interesting to work with them. When I showed up to the Airbnb where they were like posted up, I brought like all my like disco demos because I was like, oh, these guys, this is what they do, right? And they liked them, but it wasn't until I played an as yet released or as yet unreleased "Bring You a Ring." I played them that one, and then they were just like, "Oh, this is so beautiful. Let's do something like this." And it's just funny how the grass is often greener. I think as an artist, when you do something and you get and it becomes your career, I do think there's like a certain element for lots of people that's like, but I wish I could have more time to do this other thing because now everybody expects me to like do this one thing. So yeah, we want to. The songs I wrote with them are down tempo songs. I mean, Into the Blue, which is I mean it's mid tempo, but it's not disco. And I Don't Want to Stay, which is like this sort of ghostly psychedelic like basement soul thing. I mean, so Lydia is probably my favorite like harmony singing partner in the world. It's interesting. It's like people now tell both of us that we like sound like each other um, on recording, and I think that's true. Our timbres are very like similar. Um, so yeah, on both of those songs, it's Lydia and I kind of creating these like ghostly background vocals, and then I brought in some of my other friends to like add to the thickness of it and give it the feeling of like a choir.
Yeah, that's a great song to jump off of for this album. With this going back to this double release thing for like for the singles, did you want people to hear Into the Blue first and then go to Payback, or I mean, did it really matter the order for you?
I mean, I knew that Payback, you know, my what my record label does do is they give me input on what they feel is kind of the most radio friendly, I guess. They give me feedback on like what are the songs that are most likely to expand my audience. In so that a lot of times what that means is something that's like not exactly straight down the middle. Not like Bring You a Ring is that's like that's meat and potatoes. That's what I do. You know, it's like it's down tempo. It's lo-fi. It's super romantic and tender. Um, Sweet soul. Like with Payback, they were like, this has some crossover appeal. This is authentic to you. You're not like making a totally outlier like pop song. This is authentic to you, but we feel like this could live on, you know, shoulder to shoulder with other songs that might not always fit with some of your other discography. And so with that one, um, that wound up, you know, on playlists next to like the Black Keys and Portugal the Man and um, like Tame Impala and just you know kind of different, a little rockier, I guess, a little
Mhm.
poppier. Um, so I knew that that was the one that was going to get pushed first, and so I do think for me because a lot of my fan base are like record heads and they like the up tempo stuff, but they like the moodier kind of more yeah, just maybe moodier stuff, I suppose. I wanted to give both, just to be like, here's the pop single, and like here's the kind of grimy shit that is also on there.
Yeah. There's something for everyone on that album, is what we're
I
saying.
really think I genuinely think there is. Like, and I think that there's not gonna be a consensus favorite on the album, because I think it's really just gonna be a matter of like what is your, which one is for you. You know, you can vibe to all of them. I really stand behind every single track on this record, but I think they're each going to go off and kind of find their own worlds. Like Fly Away is 90s R&B. That's going to go find its way into the 90s R&B crowd. Like The Fool, the last track on the record, is like that's straight up like lowrider stuff that's going to wind up there. And you know, it's just you can kind of go through the list. Dime is like this kind of Tropicalia English Spanish duet that's going to have its own, you know, its own kind of crowd.
Again, there's something for everybody, and the album's doing really well, and we're low on stock, and so if you want it and you don't have it, you better go get it right now because I mean I checked, there's like two copies left, I think. So
Hell
I
yeah,
would,
love that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Aaron, you know this. I mean, and we don't even know if we're gonna reprint it, so I mean, you better go get it right now, right?
No, that's true. I mean, it was a big pressing, and once it's out, there's really no guarantee.
Better act fast.
Act
That's what we're
fast,
saying.
don't, and get it from the brick and mortar record shops. Get it from the record shops that are, you know, the nice online record shops. Don't wait until you have to get it at an inflated price from like a Discogs flipper. And it's like, no disrespect to people whose hustle is reselling things on the internet. Everybody's got to make a living. It's just, I really do, accessibility in art is like really important to me. And when I wind up seeing things that are stuck behind a wall of like, you can only get this for a certain amount of money. And the same thing with like live tickets. I hate when scalpers like buy them all and then inflate the cost of things. It's not right, and it takes the music out of the hands of like everyday working people. So yeah, get it from a record shop now. Don't get it from Discogs later.
And I will be deleting my Discogs, and I will be selling my I have 1,000 copies of it, and I will be distributing that accordingly. Did you feel that Into the Blue, when you were kind of putting that together, that that would be the end of, I mean, did you feel like that had the just the kind of right thing to be the title track? That was like the kind of the forefronter, if you will?
Yeah, I mean it feels like I want the album to kind of flow like a movie. I
Not
wouldn't say
Pursuit
it's
of Happiness though, not
no,
that
different,
movie.
different one. No,
Different
no.
movie, yeah.
Evil Dead 2, maybe.
Okay.
Um,
Electric
nah,
Boogaloo? Is it that's the full title of that one?
Evil Dead 2, Dead Strikes Back, maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that one, that's such a crazy movie. No, I wanted to flow like a movie, and it's like the first. I love cold opens in movies, and so the first track on the record, "Thinking of You," is the cold open. Um, and it's me still in New York right after the breakup, still running into my ex's friends on the train, and um, trying to act like I'm not sad, and then sort of realizing that there's nothing left for me in the city, and slamming my, you know, trunk door, fitting the last of the suitcases in, and driving west. And as the drive starts, that's Into the Blue. That's the title card. That's the, you know, intro credits. So it just felt like the start of something, even though, but I intentionally did not put it at this as the first track on the record.
Everything you just said about setting up that cold open, very Dylan-esque. Just saying. I've heard I've heard a lot of those things in Dylan songs.
Yeah.
And that's what the people love, that you are the I mean, I've heard people say it because I'm about to say it right now. Modern day Bob Dylan.
Soul
Uh
Game, love it.
yeah, modern day Bob Dylan. And I think that's gonna be on the hype sticker of the repress. Um, if this album is repressed, quote unquote, a modern day Bob Dylan, our modern day Bob Dylan, you can quote me on that. We'll yeah,
Like that.
yeah. It's ours because you make stuff for everybody and everybody loves you. So yeah,
No, no, it's good.
the voice of our generation.
Keep going. I mean, it's good. Yeah,
I'll send you the first
hype
drafts and
sheet.
everything.
Yeah, no, this is
Mhm.
going on the sticker for sure.
Yeah. Are you ever surprised by the way a song is fleshed out from its earliest point of a demo, or in this case, the instrumentals, to the final products of the songs on this album, for instance? Or is it kind of clear the step-by-step process, how you got from the initial idea to what's on the record?
Um, Usually it's relatively like makes sense. There's a progression to it. But I have a song on the record called "Fly Away" that was definitely a surprise. So I was with Lydia Kitto. Well, I had this '90s R&B like piano progression, and I brought her into this little studio, and we wrote like a '90s R&B jam on top of it. And I thought it was just gonna be for, one of those EPs that was kind of like a separate, its own thing. But a couple weeks later, I was at Goose's studio with Lydia, and he was flipping through. He'll just chop up samples and just log them away, even if he doesn't use them at the moment, which is really interesting. I've never seen another producer do that. But so he just has this, like, literally like a lifetime worth of just chopped records. And so he was just like clicking through stuff, and he was just like, "Oh, check this out." Plays me this like '90s R&B loop, and I realized as he's playing it that it has basically the same chord movements as this piano jam I wrote with Lydia. And so I start singing it over top this beat, and Lydia joins me. And it was just so funny to see Alex's his jaw like drop, because all of a sudden he was just playing me like a random loop, and all of a sudden there's like a finished song unfolding in front of him. And we finished, and he was just like, "Dude, what the hell was that? Like, how?" And we were like, "Dude, we had this thing," and so we just like basically combine it, and all of a sudden it just became something I couldn't have anticipated.
Yeah, that's killer, man. Is there a point with every song that you work on that you feel like, okay, like this is done, or is the finish line with some ideas kind of blurred and you kind of have to backtrack and say, okay, like cut out this and this is where we're supposed to be ending?
I mean, sometimes it is a matter of subtraction. Definitely. I think it's Anna Wintour who like um, kind of like coined this notion of when you get dressed in the morning, like look at yourself in the mirror and then take one thing off. That's one philosophy of like style. But
I like that.
I think I mean, but there's a place for maximalism in style and in music. But I think it is a great place, especially for people who are first kind of earlier in their like record making journey. I do think it's a good philosophy to just see what can you take out and still have it make sense as a production. And you'll be amazed sometimes at how much it starts to sound like a thing, not like a bunch of components stacked on top of each other, but like all of a sudden you lose a production, kind of like can cross this threshold where you lose the seams of the production. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like you can't see how it was made anymore. It just is one solid ball. Like for example, like I get some like clay pottery videos sometimes on Instagram. And so they make like cups and stuff, right? Or bowls. And there'll be this moment where like they have this like circle and they'll put like a flat piece on top and then like smear it around the edge and then like smooth it out, and all of a sudden you can't see the seam where it's sat. It's just all of a sudden one continuous piece. It's like a
Hmm.
thing now. It's not two things stacked on top of each other. It's like a bowl. It's not just like a bottom and sides. It's like one thing. And I think that is how I know, and I get that feeling that I'm no longer feeling the individual pieces. I'm just getting the production as a whole. That's when it's ready.
That was a tremendous answer, Aaron. I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed that you incorporated the bowl thing as well. This is the thing. This is what makes the good interviews. You gotta come with something else, preferably from Instagram. Maybe a little YouTube short, perhaps. I don't know if you're
Dude,
into that.
my algorithm, I don't do YouTube shorts really. My algorithm on Instagram is so crazy right now. It is all, not all, but honestly, a lot of like super obscure reels of like boomers who are like accidentally posting something, or like they'll just post like a still image of their face with like some weird ass caption, or like a high school that like just posted like a high school soccer team that like posted some notice about their like practice after school. It's like all these really weird things that are not meant to have a big audience, or like somebody's just strange song that they wrote, and it'll just be these. I don't know why. I guess maybe because when I find them I share them with my two of my bandmates. We kind of celebrate finding these like weird reels, and maybe Instagram is just learning from that, but it is very bizarre right now on Instagram.
Like you got a little bit of everything, and I think that's good. Some variety is needed.
Yeah, spice of life.
Um, do you feel like location has an effect on the way that you make music?
Yes, I mean, like location in a sort of macro sense of like city, state, like,
Yeah, like
or
really
like,
being somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, because you're originally from Baltimore, right?
yes,
So like going back to Baltimore and like writing, or just like getting an idea for a melody or lyrics or whatever it may be, and then going to Highland Park in Los Angeles and like
yeah.
making like the percussion side of it or something like that.
I mean, you know, I feel like I could spin it as like, oh, like New York is like denser, and so you write kind of smaller, and LA is like more sprawling, whatever. But like the truth is, I think for me, it's not really the case. It's like it's more the people that I have access to. Um, I can work remotely, but I don't really like it. I like to be in the same room with people. And so out here, I had a different set of collaborators for the songwriting stuff. I was able to hit up Nick Waterhouse and like sit in the same room and listen to girl group records until we, had enough inspiration to like write Payback, or sit in an Airbnb with like Jungle and like work on these weird down tempo records, and just be day in day out in Goose's studio and like tinker with drum alignment stuff. I think that anytime you change to a new setting, anytime you take yourself out of your normal context, it definitely can create a new opportunity for inspiration, for sure. But I don't think necessarily it's good marketing to say like if you write an album in the mountains, it like you could have only written that album in the mountains. But I think it's more about like taking your brain, kind of firing different neural pathways because you're putting yourself in a new situation, not necessarily like what that exact situation is, with the exception of like going a little like smaller into like how comfortable the studio is versus if it's like really bare bones. Then I do think like if I was writing, I don't have like a studio setup in my house. So like if somebody came over to write, we would wind up writing using an iPhone voice memo, and it's going to be very holistic guitar, Rhodes keyboard, something very like simple. It's not as much production oriented. Whereas if you do it at a studio with computer, then it's like, okay, then you can get on Splice and find some sick drum loop, or like you have all these synthesizers and you can kind of like make a whole production. So there I do think context matters. But in a macro sense, you're in the ocean, you're in the mountains, like it's exciting, but I don't think it like shapes it definitively.
I'm really trying to go against the grain with you here, but I can't. There's just no way. People warned me about it. They said, "Good luck trying to stomp Aaron," and fucking hey, they were right.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I would have made a terrible law school student, but I think I could have made a decent lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I would have made it through law school. It would have been too boring, I think.
Yeah, but I think that if you were able to forge some documents and you're defending somebody, you'd be raising some points.
I think actually this year or sometime in the past like calendar year, somebody got arrested for doing that. They represented like 25 different clients. Like I guess they were just acting as a lawyer in court. My question is, I wonder what their record was.
Right. Yeah, what's the wins, what's the losses?
What's the wins, what's
Absolutely.
the losses? And if I'm gonna say if that person, if that guy won, I'm gonna say above 70% or above. I don't think that I think they should drop the charges.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
I and
Also, yeah, please, Aaron,
I
please.
mean, just while we're on controversial takes,
Hmm.
if I can just share a controversial take.
Please.
I mean, I think it's not so controversial to say that past a certain age, I think you should have to get a driver's test every couple of years. I think you should have to recertify. I don't think that's crazy though. I think people would be with me on that.
Okay.
My
I see where you're coming from on that. Can you give me the first barrier? I mean, you get it, let's say you get it at 16. What's the re-up on the test? What's the first one?
okay. First, I think that the first recertification should probably be, I'm gonna say 70 years old.
Okay.
70
Okay.
years old. And then at 75, test again. And then I would say every 2 years after that
Mm.
until you hit maybe 85. And then you have to, and then every year after that, I think you got to get recertified. But that's not what I'm saying. My concern is really actually like minimum driver's age. I think that if you are able to pass a driver's exam at any age, then you should be allowed to have your driver's license. I would rather share the road with a child driver who's a wonderful driver than a legal adult who drives like an idiot.
I see your point on that. Now this just came across my desk now, so I don't know where I'm standing on this.
Okay.
I will revisit it later on, and please join us at the Patreon. We're gonna be discussing it. We'll be taking calls. Um, I like I like that that you're kind of mixing it up here, and I feel like this came to you while driving. I feel like this is a driving idea whilst in traffic or something like that.
Yeah, you get to a lot of thinking in the car in LA. I've actually been like listening to TV shows when I'm driving,
Yeah,
rather than like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't
like
listen to a lot of music while I drive.
like this one here, right?
Of course,
Aaron,
yeah,
you're always listening to the Vineyard
this is my
podcast.
drive time radio.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I will pay you later on for that endorsement. That's my hype sticker. Thank you very much. We're gonna use a little little excerpt there. No, but please.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to TV shows that I've already seen a lot, so I don't have to like look at the phone screen.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, definitely thinking sharing the road with a lot of erratic drivers in Los Angeles. I'm sort of like I think I would rather, if at any age you can prove that you're a good driver, that's fine with me. I just don't want people on the road who are bad drivers.
That's fair, and I think that a lot of people, and me included, I share your stance on that. I think that yeah, the the roads need to be filled with some better drivers. Now, going back to this TV show thing, what are we talking? What are you playing? What do you listen to the audio of?
Okay, let's see. Veep. Um,
That's a okay. That's a wild
I
one. I don't know why, Aaron, but that just kind of was not something I thought that you were gonna say. And
Interesting.
again, love to Julie Louise Dreyfus
Well,
and Tony Hale.
here, I'm asking the questions here.
I'm sorry.
What TV shows do you think that I'm listening to in the car?
Well, okay, because I burned a cassette tape once of weirdly enough, two Seinfeld episodes. That's back to back on a blank tape. So I'd put that in and I heard I was like, that's just cool to have just like the ripped audio of a Seinfeld episode.
That's fascinating. I've never heard of anyone doing that.
So with my prior experience, I thought like maybe he'll throw out a Seinfeld, a Frasier perhaps, a Cheers. That's
Yeah.
kind of maybe even a Friends. These
Uh,
are the kind of things that I was expecting to hear.
no,
Veep
I'm not a
Veep
friends.
is
I'm not
not
a
was not on my guest list. Yeah, sorry.
interesting. No, I'm not a friends person.
Me neither. Me neither.
Yeah. What else did you say? You said Seinfeld. Oh, Frasier. Frasier. I could never get into it. My ex really loved it. It's not. I don't know. It never really did it for me. Maybe I'll and Cheers. I'll take Taxi over Cheers.
Okay.
Also, side note, Taxi probably my all-time favorite TV theme song.
The taxi themes. Okay.
Oh,
It
so
now
good, dude.
that's not a Mike Post production though. But you know Mike Post, right?
No.
Mike Post made some of the greatest television theme songs ever. We're
Oh,
talking about Rockford Files. We're talking about the Law and Order theme. Okay. We're talking about Hill Street Blues. I
slappers.
believe the A Team. I mean, these are cornerstone theme songs.
They are. I think those skew a little 80s for me.
Well, I mean, he was operating within a time frame. I'll give you
For
that.
sure, for sure. I think that so, but it's interesting to me that I always gravitated towards the taxi theme because that is Bob James, and Bob James, as many listeners might know, is a absolute pillar. Is on the Mount Rushmore of hip hop samples. His catalog has been fracked because every 8 bars there's a new legendary moment to like flip and turn into an iconic sample. Him and James Brown, he's really up there with like James Brown in terms of like iconic samples. And he composed that. The composition is called Angela. I actually prefer the Taxi theme edit. I think it's just a little more concise and doesn't go to the B section because the B section is not as good. But it just captures this sort of melancholy but like gritty, like resilience in the face of like grittiness that is living in New York City. It just captures that for me. It's soulful and it's kind of hip hop. And actually, I found out after sampling it in high school, found out that Souls of Mischief had sampled it, never got released because the sample wasn't cleared for their song Taxi Cab. But I prefer I they sped up their sample and I didn't think it needed to be sped up, so I preferred my version. But anyway, that's the best TV theme song of all time, in my opinion. Oh, wait, can I just throw out a follow up? If I had to pick a second one, season one, True Detective, Far From Any Road by the Handsome Family.
Okay.
God,
Okay.
that song is so sick. Southern Gothic at its finest, mariachi horns. It's like it just feels like a showdown. It's so I love that one.
It's a good pull. It's a good pull as well. Um, Personally, my favorite season of True Detective was season 4, the one that just came out. I think that was far superior than any. No.
Season
I'm kidding.
Okay. Oh my God. Oh my God.
I'm just trying to ruffle some feathers here.
I
No,
my my feathers were ruffled, my man. I appreciated their return to form. You know what I'm saying? Like I appreciate they kind of did what Star Wars tried to do when they kind of created that new trilogy where they're like, we're not trying to like reinvent the wheel. We're gonna hit a bunch of the same notes, essentially just kind of change the context and the characters or whatever, but try to just go back and like recapture the magic. I appreciate the spirit of that as like fan service. I liked the ending. I thought that the ending was actually a good reveal. No
mm,
spoilers. But yeah, overall, I mean, T-Bone Burnett smashed that season one soundtrack. And it was just lightning in a bottle in season one, and it hasn't been the same since.
one of the greatest, T-Bone Burnett. Not because we share the same name, just because I appreciate him as a musical master that he is.
Absolutely. The Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Uh,
it's
please.
just a modern day like Harry Smith anthology of American folk music. It really like relaunched a whole chapter of folk music in America that I think we're still experiencing the reverberations from, and it was like I think a lot owed to that soundtrack. So yeah, shouts to all Burnett's.
We do appreciate it. Thank you. Um, but real quick, jumping back to this TV in the car audio only
Oh
scenario,
yes,
is there some other ones that you're choosing besides Veep?
absolutely. Succession is one that I can just like rewatch over and over again. I
Well,
think
okay, but the thing is about that, there's a lot of like cut back and forth of like silence though throughout that.
that is true, and actually after I rewatch shows a lot
Mhm.
because a lot of times my brain is just too mushy from work to like take in new stuff. So sometimes, so if I finish a series, it's much more likely that I'll watch it like multiple times. And so I totally agree because after I finished or after listening through Succession in the car, I wound up months later rewatching it. And there are subtle silent moments that you don't get when you're just listening. With that being said, I think the writing is good enough that I can just listen down anyway and have fun with it. I think the writing on that show is so good and so entertaining and delivered so well um, that it's worth. You can still forego the visual aspect and still have an enjoyable listen down.
It's fair. I will be trying that safely, and I'm not going to even peek because I'm one of the good drivers. I'm not trying to lose my license as soon as this new law that Aaron is proposing is passed.
Otherwise, there's going to be a 10-year-old who's taking your place on the road.
Right. And you know, the 10-year-old's better. It's better. I mean, sometimes there's a clearly a better and a not so good. And
That's not
that's
just total meritocracy. I don't care who's flying the plane. If they're good at it, that's great.
that as long as we get to my connecting flight soon because I gotta run. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Thank
as you're running, you'll be hearing Durand Johnson indications a long way home.
thank you. Thank you. I was reaching for that, Aaron.
Yeah.
With this different assortment of people that you are working with on Into the Blue, were you surprised on how people approached different songs that you were developing or while developing them that they're like, how about this or how about that? And then you kind of went like, oh, that's a direction that I never would have thought to take this song.
It's a good question. I mean, I tend to I bring certain songs to certain people in a very intentional way because I think I kind of have an understanding of like what their approach would be. Um, I guess on the last track of the record, I mean, I don't know if this is exactly, what you're asking, but like the last track on the record, maybe I surprised my collaborators a bit, because they sent me a demo, like an iPhone voice memo. Um, and I wound up, you know, they wound up retracking it, um, as like a nicer version, but I wound up just using their iPhone voice memo, as the bass recording, for the track, the full. So the drums, bass, and guitar are all recorded on one iPhone,
Wow.
and then we just tracked on top of that. And so, I mean, that was unexpected because normally it's like you record the demo, and even if it has magic and you fall in love with it, and you get, demoitis, it's like, in your heart, you're like, okay, well, I have to record the nicer version. But I think I've reached a point in my record making experience where I know the rules, but I know when I can break them. And so I just used the iPhone voice memo and tracked on top, of vocals, piano, acoustic piano, and flute. And they were definitely surprised and were like, are you sure you don't want us to, like, no, we can totally re-record. I was just like, nah, man, like it's got the magic.
Was that did you come to that conclusion early on, or did it take some time to kind of think about the angle that you were choosing in which
No,
to break it?
yeah, it took time. I mean, and Alex, was the one who, kind of encouraged me to go for it. Within jazz record collecting, there is this niche of high school jazz bands. Um, there are a couple from my city, that are like, sought after, but truth is, like, every single city, probably has tons of these high school jazz band records where you can hear, and I think for some people it's like baseball card collectors wanting somebody's like minor league, card, because you can hear occasionally it'll be like, oh, that guy went on to play with Miles Davis or whatever, and you can hear them shedding, like, with their high school jazz band. And Goose was like, this kind of has this wonky, almost beautiful amateur quality, this kind of like innocent quality to the performance that can only come with like at first take, that kind of demo magic. And so after doing a record with Dan Auerbach where the whole thing was centered around getting this first take magic, I was able to take those lessons and be like, no, I can just use the thing that's special. And especially with a song that feels like it ends the record and kind of sets the listener down, from this journey in this place of like kind of maybe wondering whether it's like a return to innocence in terms of optimism about love, or kind of a mourning of a loss of innocence after, like, my first kind of real like adult breakup of my life. Having that amateur quality, and I say that literally like in the best possible sense, like, quality to the performance felt fitting. So I didn't expect it to go that way, but that's where I went.
Beautiful. Real quick, as just a quick side note, what is a jazz record that any enthusiast of jazz should have in their collection if they're collecting vinyl?
Um, I mean, kind of blue, Miles Davis. I mean, you don't like. There's tons um, of course, that is truly like probably 101. Like that's the jazz record you give to a kid. But I think that's like all the more reason to like celebrate some of the ones that are just like the pillars of the genre. We're in a place with music where, between Spotify Weekly and, these
Delta,
playlists
Delta,
and
Delta's
Delta boarding music.
Delta's boarding
No, I
playlist.
mean it's like you can go on YouTube and just type like rarest 45s and just immediately be like plunged into like the deepest cuts. And I talk to people now who like I'll meet people who are well versed in like the obscure numero group, super cutty shit, but they don't know the like pillars of the genre. So I think especially for people who are like just getting into jazz collecting, like don't be afraid to just like get the classic thing because that is an education in itself. And of course, like you can go listen to like Sun Ra's solo piano composition where he's breaking so many rules that literally it's like a fine line between that and the what's his name? Who voices Bob's Burgers? Bob what's his
H.
name?
John Benjamin.
The H. John Benjamin jazz record. And
I didn't even know that existed.
oh, it's called Well I Should Have asterisk learned how to play piano. And it's literally like him with a jazz band that's like totally cooking, but then he literally doesn't know how to play piano. So he's just like banging around and it sounds like shit. But then when you listen to Sun Ra's like composition, like piano compositions, I think it's called Satellites. He's breaking so many rules that it kind of sounds like he doesn't know how to play. And I say that I'm not a music theory expert, and I'm sure there's some jazz head out there that's gonna like send me like threats or whatever for saying that. But
Hey,
when
don't do
break,
that. We freewheel on this podcast. We say what comes to mind. We talk about H. John Benjamin. All right, we're breaking rules here ourselves. So don't be coming after Aaron.
we are the Sun Ra of podcasters. I think this is the Sun Ra of podcasting.
There's the hype
Um,
sticker. There's the that's that's clickbait right there, Aaron. We got people reeled in. Yeah,
yeah,
perfect,
yeah.
perfect.
Anyway, don't be afraid to just listen to the classics.
Real quick, that is a very funny bit of H. John Benjamin's to just have a great backing band and he's just fucking around.
Totally. I mean, it kind of feels like Ween a bit in their what's it's called like 12 Golden Country Classics,
Mm.
um, where they got a really respected roster of country like studio musicians in to play the backing tracks first, and then just wrote like the dumbest fucking songs over top of it. Um, it kind of feels like that, which is great. Very so.
In addition to collaborating with some other musicians on this newest release, you have also been collaborating with people on their music as well recently, right?
That's true. I co-wrote and drummed on a track with Mayor Hawthorne.
Yeah, what was that process like? And that was a Love Goes, right?
Hmm. Yeah, Mayor. I wound up doing a couple sessions with him for my record, and I wound up not. Uh, I wasn't going to use it for my record, and Mayor was like, even though it's a great song and I loved it, it's just like I think it was more just about trying to find the most cohesive set list for my record. And so Mary was like, if you're not gonna put it on this record, I want to use it. And I was like, hell yeah, absolutely. Because I love the song. So yeah, I was really happy to see it come out, and it's really cool to write with somebody who, I mean, I remember being back in Indiana in college and hearing Mayor Hawthorne for the first time in probably like 2010, and hearing Just Ain't Gonna Work Out. And the B side of that record, there was a YouTube video where he was just performing an acapella on the street with a quartet, um, called When I Said Goodbye. Um, and it's such a beautiful song. So anyway, so fast forward years later, now I'm like sitting in the same room, like writing songs with him. It's really special.
Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling, kind of trippy at the same time to be like,
Yeah,
wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a delicate balance between, and I felt the same working with Dan Auerbach, who I learned how to singing to Black Keys records, like in my car when I got my driver's license at the tender age of 9.
I was gonna say,
Um,
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because Baltimore was implementing that for a time. I didn't know that your age bracket fell into that
it's
category.
really
Okay.
it's progressive city. Yeah, and so anyway, I mean, it's like you have to temper your um you kind of need to temper your fandom or find a balance between not being like too cool and acting like you're not a fan, like of course like be a fan, but I think in order to create the healthiest creative dynamics, you have to go in there like you belong, like yeah, this is somebody that you love, but you're in the room because of your work, and you're in the room because you believe in what you do and they believe in what you do.
It's good words of advice. Um, thank you, Aaron. Uh, I mean, again, and I think that was brought up in the court case, Frazer versus Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
It was you versus the city of Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're not going to spoil alert or anything like that. You know how that ends. Go and check that out. It was actually dramatized season 2, episode 4 of Veep, which I don't know if you were listening to that one recently. It's a good one.
Season 2, episode 4 would have been right after midterms. Ugh, I can't pull it out, but yeah.
That's wild. I've never seen Veep, but I gotta check it out because I love the Arrested
Oh my God,
Development.
dude, it's so good. One of the best ensemble casts of all time.
Were there songs from Into the Blue that could have made it on to Introducing or vice versa?
No. Well, I mean, all of the songs from Into the Blue were written years after introducing. There is one song that I finished because Snoop Dogg asked me to, um, from introducing, that I could have put on Into the Blue, but I chose not to, and now it's just in the archives. Long story short, he got in touch with me because he was working on a compilation of like soul music, of like lowrider soul, and he wanted me to submit a song for it. And I had just finished introducing, so I felt like I had written, all the songs that were in me, I had written. And he was like, "Do you have any unreleased music that you could submit for this compilation?" And I didn't, and I just lied and was like, "Oh, yeah, of course, I have lots of songs." So he's like, "Cool." I was like, "Can I have like 3 days just to like get the mix tight and get it, whatever?" He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." So I hung up and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, do I have any? I did have like 4 instrumentals that I didn't use from the introducing sessions, and one of them I thought was really solid. So I wrote to that, submitted it. Um, he or I just texted it to him, and then he texted back, "Use a bad boy," which, I mean, that's a hype sticker right there.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I was like, "Man, I'm feeling really good about this." He's like, I really like this. And but then like maybe like 3 or 4 days later, he was like, "Hey, that was really cool, and I want to use this for this other thing I'm working on. But do you have anything that's more similar to like Isn't Any Wonder?" Like, which is like, for those listening who don't know, like it's much more down tempo, like sweet soul thing. And I was like, "Oh, I got tons of stuff like that." This time I really didn't have anything, and I that is when I wrote "Bring You a Ring." Was for this Snoop Dogg compilation that he wound up abandoning because it was just like a pandemic project. And I think when everything opened back up, he just kind of like moved on to other stuff. So I was like, I would rather put this out than wait and see if maybe years later he comes back to it. So that is why "Bring You a Ring" exists. Thank you to Snoop Dogg. Um,
Shout out to Snoop.
yeah, but that other song that didn't get released, I'll maybe put it out sometime. On some like, you know, unreleased demos and whatever. It would be cool. But I just felt like for Into the Blue, I wanted to be this fresh, cohesive vision with one co-producer with me. So yeah.
Mark Kaczor. I believe is how you say his last name, mentioned this quote when he was interviewing you on his show for it was what is it here? E 88.5 the SoCal Sound, which will be linked below. That was great. There's a performance, there's an interview, there's Mark, there's Aaron. I mean, what else do people want? That's what the people want to see. And he had mentioned that there's a quote from you that says, "Into the blue is the clearest portrait of who you are as an artist." Um, and just kind of piggybacking on your guys' conversation, does it take time to realize what you want to make as an artist? Do you have to be an artist for a while to kind of understand what direction you want to go in?
I think that the more you the more you make art, the more you can choose if you want to have a direction. But I also think that it's not it's not a coincidence that lots of people's favorite records from an artist are their first ones, because that is coming from like an intuitive place. They're not always necessarily, they don't know so much yet. Wait, I think you can know too much. Like I went, I studied audio engineering at Indiana University, and it was part of the conservatory, but kind of on the outskirts. They would actually group us a lot with the ballet program, which was like in the music school, but it's not a performance. It's not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's different. It's like you're recording music. It's different than like you're studying violin or oboe or whatever.
Right, right.
And anyway, Bloomington had a thriving music scene, thriving, amazing music scene. The talent that was playing in basement shows, these shitty basements in Indiana, was stunning. I mean, people were sticking four-part harmonies through broken PA systems in basements with 200 people that were zoned for like 50 people. Um, anyway, there was a bit of a divide in the town between people who, bands that were made up of people in the music school and bands that were made up of kids who were just like in other parts or in town or whatever. And all of my favorite bands were ones that did not come from the conservatory. I think it's possible to know too much. You've learned so much theory that simple things don't move you anymore. You've like blown out your taste buds. And I think it's harder to connect sometimes when things are like too heady. So no, I mean, I think as you learn more, I actually think it's really crucial as you kind of get farther into your artistic career to temper your experience with maintaining the kind of exploratory feeling of like being an amateur. Otherwise, you're gonna make like overly wrought bullshit.
Is it possible to reset the palette on that to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I'm too close to this and I don't even want to make simple mistakes because I know too much. Is there a way to reset that?
Um, I mean, taste, I think, which of course is obviously is like subjective. Um, but I think I don't know. I mean, that seems really hard if you are through the looking glass and you sort of are such a master of music theory that these simple chord progressions no longer excite you. And I mean, it's all artistically valid, but I guess maybe if somebody was like too far down and I was trying to kind of pull them back, I mean, I think it's a lot about listening, going back to some of the simple things that are powerful. And, you know, I I express it a lot and think it about it a lot that like Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin is a one chord song. Um I don't like nobody can say I don't want to meet the person who would ever say that Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin is not an amazing song. Um you can do a lot with a little. And I think maybe I would encourage somebody who is too far down to give yourself a fun challenge, not like frame it as like, oh, this is bad, but give yourself a fun challenge to work within parameters. Because I think when you work within limitations, you can do amazing things. So try to write a song with one chord. And now the chord changes can't be the thing that makes it interesting. You have to figure out what are the other things that you can play with. You can play with texture, you can play with dynamics, arrangement. And once you start there, I think then you can start to phase back in some of these more sophisticated approaches and maybe find something that winds up being a happy medium between like total novice level and like way too heady in the weeds type stuff.
I think that's a great way of doing it, Aaron. Yeah. That guy from Khruangbin, Mark, I want to say, guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
He says something about working in parameters as well, that he sets parameters for himself. And I've heard that, but I never thought about connecting like parameters with resetting the palette. That's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's fun to work within boundaries.
I like that, Aaron. I like that a lot. Has your perception of the songs from introducing kind of changed, or do you hear them differently than when they were originally released and they were fresher?
I mean, the biggest difference is that I wrote that about a girl that I was with at the time, and now I'm not. So, um, yeah, I mean, there were certain ways that I would introduce a song like Have Mercy that I kind of had to be like, oh, I guess I got to figure out a different way to talk about this song. And that is kind of a tricky, interesting place to be. Like, how do you talk about these love songs that you wrote from a real place that no longer sort of reflect your current situation, um that are just out in the world, but they reflect other people's current situation. Like they're there, those people are hearing those love songs and they are in love and they're feeling it for them, and it's for them and it's real in their life. It is a trippy thing. I mean, how songs take on new life. When you put them out there, you relinquish a certain amount of control over it. And they can mean different things beyond the artist's original intention. Look at Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen. I mean, how many assholes have used that song as like a like, look, yeah, like America, when like he's not talking about that. It's like it's kind of like a bleak, kind of gritty thing. So all types of things happen when you put out songs, and I think it just comes with the territory that your life will change, but these songs are frozen forever.
It's a timestamp of how you were feeling or what you were going through during that time
Yeah.
of creation. Do you expect the same sort of changing of viewpoint, if you will, with these newer songs from the new album?
Yeah, I'm sure that they'll feel differently.
I like the yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think just it's an emotional processing album, and I think the final step, it's interesting to now externalize the feelings that I put into music by performing them on stage over and over. I wonder what a therapist would say about that act of essentially like having to embody that moment, that feeling over and over again. But like the first time I tried to play the Fool on stage was before the record came out, and I like cried on stage trying to play it. because it was super, super raw. This time at the release show, it was my second time performing it, and I was able to get through it and fine. And I think they have to sort of take the song has to take a journey if you're going to perform it live. You wind up, I don't know, just kind of emotionally preparing for it in a way that doesn't feel as raw every time. And you can then choose, I think, in a way, the way an actor might choose how much to put into it, how much
Mm,
emotional remove to put into it. And you can be in control rather than your emotions, because I think lots of people think that they want unfiltered emotion on stage, but I actually think, at least especially for singers, it is a super unhelpful thing, because if you get emotional and start crying, it's like the tension, the muscle tension here really restricts the throat. The soft palate gets raised, and you wind up with like, this kind of like like very like blubbery sound, which unless you're singing Roy Orbison is not super helpful.
yeah, there
Um,
is always exceptions. Roy Orbison being one of those.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's always going to change.
I mean, do you think that like Mick Jagger still gets choked up when he sings like Angie or something like that, you know? Or do you think, I mean, after all the it just gets, for lack of a better term, this kind of sounds callous, but diluted in a way.
No, I mean, I think it does. I think there is a certain amount of emotional dilution. But then certain nights, certain times, certain things in your life probably will affect that. Then when you go to perform that song again, you might have some of the kind of recipe to kind of re-access that raw emotion. And that's why every once in a while you'll see a singer get emotional singing an old song, even though they've performed it hundreds of times, and it doesn't happen all the time.
Is there a song that stands out to you from this new album, or at least like for like right now, one's
Mm.
jumping out at you for whatever reason?
I am really proud of, like, man, I love all these songs. I think I've been really excited for people to get to know Fly Away as a record, because it is definitely the most different song I've ever put out. Um, and I don't normally check YouTube comments, but my mom sent me one. I think generally it's just, if you're having a good day, the last place you want to be is like YouTube comments, comment sections in general. Um, but somebody said there's something like, this song is like Aaron telling us he can do any decade or any genre or something. And I do feel that way. It made me laugh because I was like, I have my demos, my folder of like unreleased demos is like so sprawling in terms of like different styles of music, different decades. Like I can write in all these different styles. And I didn't write in all these styles just to show that I can. I did it because it's what's authentic to me. But I do love, I'm proud, to have, um so I guess for people to kind of see me as someone who can write across genres, because I'm not like a DJ. I collect 45s, but like with my music, I want people to like trust me as a curator. I want people to trust that, like, even if it's not the exact thing that they're there for, trust that if I give it to you, it's gonna be of like a certain, you're gonna like it, because I want people to like find me because they trust like my taste almost.
High
Uh,
quality.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I feel really proud of how that song turned out.
Yeah, awesome. Uh, you used Sylvie. You had Sylvie open up for you, right? For this album release show.
Hmm. Yeah,
Ah,
Sylvia's one of my favorite contemporary bands. I think they're so sick.
shout out to Ben Schwab.
Yeah.
And go listen to his interview if you haven't. You've also been working on this on a new Indications album, right?
Yeah, LP4 is underway. Yeah.
Ooh, did that kind of come right off the heels of finishing up, or at least releasing Into the Blue?
Yeah, it did. It came directly on the heels. I mean, Into the Blue came out on the 28th, and on July 2nd, I flew to North Carolina to start recording. So I just got back like
Took a big break, took a huge kind
took
of
a
pause.
and actually one of those days was spent with an all day like filming for like some doing some performances of songs from Into the Blue. So I was supposed to go out on the first, but I was like shredded, dude. I was like I felt sick. My house looked like a tornado hit it. Like every piece of clothing I owned was on the couch. It's just like there's food going bad in my fridge. Like it was just I was just like, y'all, I need one day. I just need one day to like reset. And thankfully, Blake and Durand totally understood that, and I really appreciated that because I was able to come home to like a clean apartment, and it just felt it felt so good. So, shouts to them for understanding.
Definitely. Yeah, that is really hot off the heels. Did you know that that was going to happen? And were you kind of expecting the strike while the iron was hot? Or did it just
I
kind
did
of
know. I mean, I did know that it was going to happen. You know, these things get scheduled months in advance, but I think that there's a difference between the scheduling and the like doing. It's so easy to say yes. I said yes one time to playing a wedding in New York. It's the only wedding I've ever played.
in
I
the
was
city
playing.
or upstate or
It was up. I was well. I was in the city. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Greenpoint. I'm not Greenpoint. I was in Red Hook. Playing this outdoor street festival, and I played. Um, I played my set, and afterwards, this girl came up to me, and um, she was just so beautiful that I like said yes to playing her wedding, which doesn't even make any sense because she's getting married. So it's like it doesn't even it makes no sense for me to be like, oh yeah, this girl's like really cute, so I'm gonna like say yes. Like no sense, but whatever.
I
It
mean she must
was
have been really cute though. I mean,
she was a looker. But I she was like, this wedding's like 9 months from now. Like, will you play it? And it's just saying yes to something that 9 months from now takes nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so easy just say yes because it's so far away. It doesn't affect your life at all to say yes. And then all of a sudden it's like coming up, I'm like, oh shit, I forgot I like agreed to do this thing and whatever. It was like kind of chaotic. But how do we even get on that? Oh
I
yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yes. The scheduling the indication.
scheduling.
So so I knew because it was booked months in advance that like my album was gonna come out on the 28th, and then a couple days later I was supposed to fly to North Carolina, um, and start recording. But yeah, when the day came, I was just like pretty shredded. So
Wait,
yeah,
can we get back to the wedding real quick? You did it?
uh-huh.
And how was it?
It's stressful because it's like she wanted me to play. It happened on a hill. And so at the top of the hill was the ceremony. Middle of the hill was the cocktail hour. Bottom of the hill was like with like a big tent with like the dinner.
That's wild. You got to
And
traverse down there's like plans
there
on the
were there were like ATVs, like little golf carts or whatever that would like take us up the hill to the top. And I never played. I I guess I played one person down the aisle before, and it is really stressful because it's just like that's their moment. You don't want anything to go wrong. A string to pop, the guitar to slip out of tune, to forget your fingering and play the wrong chord, like whatever. So it's like, but I did it and it was cool.
it was just you as a solo one?
No, I had a violin player with me and then a bass player and a another guitar player so that I would hop on drums during the cocktail hour and the dinner hour. But during the
That
cocktail hour, I mean, they had they were like, did you bring the generator or something? Did you bring power? I was like, no, nobody told me to do this. So we had to use this big, loud ass generator, drag it into the woods far enough away that we could like play. Anyway, it's loose. I don't do weddings. Please don't ask me to do weddings. I don't do weddings. I don't
Not
do weddings.
anymore. But that was that pro gratis? Was that for
No,
nothing?
no, no, no.
Okay. I was like, dang, dude, that's a lot. But look,
No, 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 no.
listen, do not
That
ask
would be
Aaron.
some next level. That would be next level. Yeah.
Uh, Now I have a big favor to ask you after the podcast. And
Swear to God,
hopefully,
if you asked me to play your wedding, Jacob, if you asked me to play your wedding,
I'll wait. Oh wait. We'll get the answer on Patreon.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah. So that was kind of quick succession there though with working on your own and working with indications on and you said the fourth album.
yeah.
Wow,
I know, I know.
awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Did you kind of use some ideas that were kind of left unused for Into the Blue on this newest album?
There is probably going to be one, yeah,
Ooh.
but we really, I really wanted it to be like a separate thing. Like it's a separate project. It has a separate voice, a separate personality. So generally, no, but this one idea that I recorded for Into the Blue was actually done with members of the Indications. We did a writing session with them for me. Um, so it felt okay to like bring it back into the band.
Hmm. Yeah, is it kind of do you kind of have to switch gears a little bit doing that kind of going from your solo stuff to the indication stuff, or is it a
Yeah.
pretty seamless? Okay.
I mean, it's like, I mean, those are guys that I've worked with for so long and um, have learned so much from. They've shaped me as a writer and artist. So it's it's definitely easy to just pop back in, but it is like a slightly different approach, especially with Dan. I think it was much more similar, like on my first record, much more similar to what the Indications do. I think with Into the Blue, I've sort of found something that feels like more of a distinct voice, I think. And I'm excited to like just keep exploring it and see where that path leads. But it's fun to have outlet where I can work as part of a team, and then one where I mean I still have a team with my solo stuff because of all the collaborations, but yeah, it's just a different mode, I guess.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Um, and I want to ask you about Okonski. What was working with Steve Okonski and Michael Montgomery on that on the Magnolia record
Yeah,
like?
thanks for shouting that out. They are my bandmates in the Indications, so I love having like it's like the Marvel cinematic universe thing where it's like you have this main storyline, and then you have each person has their own little like storyline, and they have crossovers, and Iron Man shows up in the Spider-Man movie and whatever. It's like I love that. So it's fun to apply that to music. Working with Steve is really cool in that context because I'm not a jazz drummer, so I really have to push myself out of um, kind of out of my normal context, and it's fun to stretch that way a little bit. Um, I love what he's doing. I think it's really cool and unique, and um, I feel like it's already reaching actually a great audience, and I just want even more people to hear it. And it's really cool compositions. Steve is not only a great bandmate, great person, but just a really cool, interesting composer. So yeah, I'd encourage everybody to check that out. And
Yeah.
he just oh, can I say it? Yeah, because again, he just had a baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations to Steve and his family. And please go check out Steve's interview if you haven't, and Michael Montgomery's interview if you haven't. Fantastic musicians, fantastic album, Magnolia. Uh, please go get that if you haven't, and go check it out. And yeah, man, Steve's amazing. Michael's amazing. You're great too, Aaron. I don't want to leave you out. Um, yeah, with that because it was pretty much improvised for the most part, kind of in that sense of just kind of recording it, just kind of building something real quick and a lot of improvising with that, right?
Yeah, a lot of improvising.
Did it kind of feel like the Arbach way of going about music in that kind of more of that sense than a Goose sense, I
It's
guess?
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's closer to the yeah, definitely closer to the hour back approach because we're all in one room. There's not really a lot of overdubs. It's just about what's happening there, flaws, quirks, and all.
Yeah. Yeah, I made it out to that show that I think the the very first one at Gold Diggers. That was amazing. That
Oh,
was
you were
really
there.
cool.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah,
Fun.
that was amazing to see. And if Okonski's playing around your area, go and see him. It's a real treat. Aaron, last question for you here. Does every piece of music that you're either helping compose, making yourself, or just kind of generally just being around, do all these things contribute to the way that you are developing your own palette? We'll use that word for this analogy here. Um, does it help develop that palette, and that palette goes on to inform what you go on to make further on down the line?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the it's called they call it an album cycle. Like it is cyclical, it is iterative. And so every time you make a record, you have a vision of what you want, or you go out, set out to see what you find. And then there are successes and there are failures and there are happy accidents. And you can take those lessons and then apply it to the next one and the next one, and the next one. And so I hope when people listen through my discography, they can hear that progression. And I would love for them to come away with a sense of feeling like I just can't wait to hear what he does next.
I can't wait either, Aaron. Thank you so much for coming back on here, sir.
It's fun.
Uh, Always good chatting with you. But before I let you go, we got the promo to do here. So the new album, Into the Blue, is out now. Is it via Dead Oceans? Okay, cool. Via Dead Oceans. You can find the merch at shop.aaronfrazermusic.com, and that's where you can find all that good stuff. And people could follow you on Instagram. Is that the best place to keep up to date with everything that you're doing, Aaron?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok.
Dope. And the Instagram is at Aaron underscore Frazer. And are we gonna do we plug the TikTok? Do we not plug the TikTok? That's up to you, Aaron.
Oh, I think it's the same. I think it's just at Aaron Frazer. Yeah.
It's gonna be illegal. Whatever. We'll cross that bridge. Yeah, Durand Jones and Indications, music streaming everywhere. New forthcoming album. Out when it's out. It's in production, so just hold tight. And everyone could support the band by going to the store, which is store.durandjonesindications.com. And yeah, keep up to date with the new album and such by following them on Instagram at Durand Jones and Indications. And Okonski's Magnolia, like we just mentioned, is out now via Coal Mine.
Yeah. Mhm.
Awesome. And yeah, you can go by the vinyl through their website, and you can follow Steve at steve.okonski to keep up to date with everything that he's doing. And all that stuff will be linked below, whatever you're listening to this on. And do we have anything else, Aaron?
That's it, man. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute, all right?
Cool.
Thank you, sir.